Alright, so we are doing solving linear equations in one variable. This is target 1B, and it's just going to be day one today, so we're just going to cover a little bit of it. Alright, your objectives for today: I can solve a linear equation with a variable on one side of an equation. I can solve a linear equation with a variable on two sides of an equation. And I can solve a linear equation with a variable on one side of an equation with a fraction as a coefficient. So that last one will be the hardest. All right, so steps to solving any equation with one variable in it. Really, it's going to be the same for each one as long as there's only one variable in the equation. So for the problems that we're going to do today, basically all you're going to do is you're going to identify where the variable is in the equation, and you're going to have to start by adding or subtracting. And we call this the inverse operation of what's being done, or the opposite. Inverse is the more technical word, and that basically just means if something's being added, we subtract it from both sides. If something's being multiplied, we divide it by both sides, and vice versa. So if we have to do that, we do it to both sides. You may, in the past when you've done this, have referred to this as moving it from one side of the equation to the other, but really what you're doing is you're following the golden rule of algebra, and that's anything you do to one side, you must do to the other. All right, and so now if the variable has a coefficient, you will divide or multiply again, do the inverse operation, both sides by that number. So first example, solve the following equation. We've got 37 equals 10 minus 3x. So we've got our equation. Variables on the right side, right there. So we want to start by subtracting 10 because we have a positive 10. Now, what you need to be careful of is not saying, oh, that's a negative 10 because of this negative on the right, to the right of the 10. You always go by the sign that's to the left. All right, so we have a positive 10, which means we have to subtract that from both sides. And what that's going to do is that's going to zero this out, and it's going to leave you with 27 equals negative 3x. Coefficient of our variable is negative 3, so this is our coefficient right here. Again, include the sign to the left, and we're going to divide both sides by that negative 3. So the variable will be completely alone because these are going to cancel out, leaving you with just the 1 in front of the x. So our answer, because 27 divided by negative 3 is negative 9, so x equals negative 9. All right, so next example. Now we have variables on both sides because we have an x here and we have an x here. All right, so we want to perform the inverse, and we want to take, it's always easiest, I find, to take the smallest, the variable with the smaller coefficient. So here 10 is smaller than 12, so we subtract 10x, so we have to take the variable with us from both sides. That's going to clear that side, and then we just do, because the variables are the same, all we have to do is subtract the coefficients, which is going to leave us with 2x. Everything else stays the same. The minus 4 goes down. The 6 is still on the right side. And then we just follow the same remaining steps as in the previous example. So we have a variable on one side. We need to isolate it, get it by itself. So we're going to go ahead and add 4 to both sides. That'll clear that side of that. And 6 plus 4 is 10. And then we've got this coefficient of 2, so we're going to divide both sides by 2 again, clearing that side except for just the variable, giving you x equals 5. All right, final example. So we have the following equation. Now we have 2/3 x minus 7 equals 25. So now we have a fraction for a coefficient. And we only have a variable on one side, so we don't have to worry about anything else. That's good. So the steps to solve it are going to be the same as the first example until we get to this part where we have to deal with this. So let's start off by, this should be adding 7 to both sides, which is going to give us 32 on this side. And we have the 2/3 x. Now, our last step would, if this was a whole number, would be to just divide by that number. But we have a fraction. So what we do is we multiply both sides by its reciprocal. Now remember, reciprocal means you are taking, so reciprocal So basically what we're going to do is, if this is 2/3, its reciprocal, I'm just going to abbreviate there for the sake of time, reciprocal is 3/2. So you keep the sign and you just flip it. Swap the numerator and the denominator. So we're going to multiply both sides by 3/2. Because what that does is that, remember, when you multiply, you can simplify this way, and the 2 and the 2 cancel out, the 3 and the 3 cancel out, leaving you with just the x. 32. Now you can do this one of two ways. You could say 32 times 3 and then divide by 2. Or you can recognize that these are both even numbers, so I'm just going to divide both by 2. That'll clear that. 32 divided by 2 is 16, and then you're just left with the 16 times 3, which is going to give you x is 48. Now for any of these, you should never have to ask me. Let's say we're doing something in class. You should never ever have to ask me if your answer is right, because there is a way to tell if your answer is right, and it works every time. So all you have to do is take whatever answer you got and substitute it in place of the variable. So looking back at our first example, we have 37 equals 10 minus 3x. Our answer was -9, so I'm going to take that x and I'm going to replace it with -9. So then 3 times -9 is -27, so I have minus a negative, which is going to make that a positive 27. So 37 equals 10 plus 27. 37 equals 37. That, since both sides are equal, I know I'm right. All right, so just a trick that I suggest you use. Don't overlook it. And that's it for this video. Have a good one.